I'm joined by my client, Beth, today. Beth's going to talk with me quite openly about her background as a former dancer and some of the challenges that she faced in that career and with that lifestyle, as well as some of the highs as well, because it wasn't all doom and gloom.
No, not all of it.
So, how did you start? What prompted that? Because you were a child when
I was 2.5.
Wow.
When I started dancing. Like any 2.5-year-old, my mum took me. You don't decide those things on your own. But I must have been dancing around the house enough for her to go out of her comfort zone and take me, because none of my siblings had danced or anything. It wasn't part and parcel. So, yeah, I started at about 2.5.
Was that like traditional dance? Was that ballet?
Yeah, that was ballet. And luckily, my local ballet school that was in, school classroom, after school would finished for the day, they moved all the tables and chairs. It was that kind of setup. Luckily, it was an excellent school. And I just happened to have a brilliant teacher from the off.
It's really good.
Yeah, lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Yeah, very much so. So how long were you there?
Oh my gosh. So I was it was the Deeping School of Ballet, and it was a Cicchetti style of syllabus. And I was there from 2.5 until I got into the Royal Ballet School age 11.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you mentioned Cicchetti, was it Cicchetti?
Yeah, Cicchetti.
Cicchetti.
So there are different styles of ballet, different writings, different syllabuses and different exam routes that you can take. And Cicchetti is probably one of the lesser known, actually. I'm the best.
No bias there, Beth.
Not biased at all, but it is the best. Yeah.
So when you went to the Royal School of Ballet and you were 11, is that when you went into boarding school then?
Yeah. So I auditioned. I was just encouraged to audition. Obviously, my teacher saw the talent, which nobody else would have seen because I wasn't from that kind of background. So my parents weren't dancers. Nobody had been on the stage or anything. And so she encouraged me to audition. And they do local auditions first. And then you go to London and audition. And then you get called back again. And you're with people from all over the world. And you do a weekend of auditions. And I got a place. And it was phenomenal. And I got a full scholarship as well. So they paid for me to go. Otherwise, I couldn't have got.
Wow. How? I mean, you mentioned obviously that you came from a family that had no sort of performance background.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost have been quite starstruck, I guess. That's quite for something like that to happen. I mean, I imagine there's quite a few applicants for these places and they are going to be very contested.
Yes.
Yeah.
And nearly all the children that get taken into White Lodge age 11 have come through the Royal Ballet School Junior Associate Programme, the JAs, with the plaits over the head and the 2 bows. And me and one other girl hadn't. I'd never taken one of these JA classes. I came from that village school doing ballet twice a week, and I got through into the school without doing the associate programme. So we actually didn't know anything about the Royal Ballet School. And I'll tell you something which my mum will smile at. When I got offered the plaits, I wasn't allowed in the room. This is back in 93, 94. I wasn't allowed in the room. It was just my parents that went in. So my mum and dad came out and I was stood on the balcony, which used to be for outside the Salom's ballet studio. So we were looking out at Richmond Park You just look on this balcony and it's just Queen's Ride, Richmond Park. And my dad said to me, well, they've offered you a place, Pet. Do you want to go? And I remember saying, well, where is it that I'd be going? We didn't realise we were at the school already. We had no idea.
That's incredible. That's a lot for an 11-year-old. That's a lot.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a lot, yeah.
I mean, when did you have the conversation about the fact that going would mean leaving home and would mean going and sort of staying there residentially? You know?
In the car on the way home. I've got 2 older brothers and an older sister, and they didn't come. We stayed in London for the weekend, and we had the conversation on the motorway on the way home. And I remember the lights going by, and it was dark. And I remember thinking, I'm going. And my mum was, holding it all in, saying, well, they've offered to pay. So that barrier had been taken away. And she'd be saying, but do you understand, Pet, that, you'd be, away from home? So I'm going. I didn't understand what it meant, really. All I knew is I wanted to dance. And I was going to dance.
Yeah. This is the thing, I can only assume that up until that point, dance was quite a romantic art form for you, as you said, in a sort of small dance school with a really fantastic tutor, somebody who was really passionate about it. And I imagine that the student base was quite small compared to what you would be going into. That it was almost an idealized version, and going from that to the reality.
Absolutely.
I imagine was quite shell-shocking.
It was very, very daunting, because if you think back to the early 90s and the 80s, my childhood growing up, there was no Sky Arts channel. There was no... Ballet wasn't being shown at the cinema. There was a magazine that I got every month because I loved to look at the pictures. And it was all very idealised ballerinas in tutus on the tip of a rose petal. It was very romanticised, actually. You're right. That's all we had. I had the images of Margot Fontaine, and not in one of those images would you have known what a ballerina had to go through to get to that immaculate, perception of what dance is. But I knew I wanted it. It was a shock. It was a shock for every single girl in my year. There were tears, lots of tears. And no phones. No phones.
No.
No texts.
Different time.
Yeah.
So once you arrived and settled in, at what point do you think it dawned that this was quite a drastic change in lifestyle? 11-year-old you, full of all these grand ideas,
dreams,
and dreams, and then reality. At what point, how quickly do you think that started to sink in?
That's a really good question. I would like to say the first night, or even as I watched my parents drive away, it was like reality. I do think reality set in as soon as they drove away. But you've got the buzz of the other girls and where are you from? And we had international students. So it was, I think it really hit probably after the first week of realising how hard it was. And that there was nobody to put you to bed, nobody to make your favourite dinner. Sorry, Mum, this is probably quite hard for you to watch. Nobody to tuck you in. Nobody was on your side. It was pretty grueling. We had that Russian style of training, which was tough love. Actually, I don't know if there was any love. It was just tough. And I think if any child had come from the background that I'd come from, which was very nurtured, very loving family, because not all kids get that, but I had that. So I think it was probably a bigger shock to me than it might have been to somebody else. Yeah.
That's so hard. Like, obviously I've got a daughter who isn't much younger than you were. No. She's going to turn eight in June. And to hear that, to think that in 3 years she might go off, that would break me. That would actually break me as a parent. Obviously, it was your decision, and I think it's really admirable of your parents to leave that decision up to you.
To let me go.
Yeah, because it's your life. And I'm sure every fibre of their being wanted to say, no, you're staying home. But you had these dreams, and they wanted you to realise those dreams. And that's incredible. But obviously for you as a child as well, you probably made that decision without fully realising the implications.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was 11 and I wanted to dance, and that was it. I didn't even know how to wash my own hair, Didn't ever make my own bed at that point. So, I was a child. Yeah. So me and my parents, my dad has sadly passed, but me and my parents have had adult conversations in recent years that have been loaded with emotion, as you can imagine. But ultimately, how brave were they to let me go?
Yeah.
So brave.
Yeah.
And trusting of the system. They didn't know either. So we were all trusting, Yeah.
Yeah. And we are going to dive into some of those deeper emotions in future episodes. We'll wrap it up there for this one, because I think that's good. We've been recording for about 10 minutes, so that'll do for about three or four reels. But we're on the clock. Beth's just finished a training session, and her husband, who is also one of my clients, Rich, he's going to be wondering where she is. So.
And can we discuss that I have just finished the training session with not a scrap of makeup, not washed my hair. I did have a shower, but it can't smell that.
No. No. So there's next video. I think Beth will be a bit more presentable. I won't just spring it on her. You want to record 10 minutes?
At least.
But no, thank you so much, and that was really insightful. I really enjoyed that, and I'm sure, as we go further into it, there'll be a lot of interesting topics.
We'll see what comes up.
Thank you so much, Beth.
Thanks, Dean. Cheers.
All right, bye.